everybody in the We will now reconvene into open session. The time is 6:10 p.m. Please join us in the Pledge of Allegiance and the Texas Pledge. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Honor the Texas flag. I pledge allegiance to thee, Texas, one state, under God, one and indivisible. Thank you all for joining us tonight. First up is to consider action on items discussed in closed session. Would someone like to make that motion? Ms. Prosnick?
I move that the board approve Ms. Shonda LaRoque as DAEP Teams Principal as recommended by administration and a personnel selection committee.
Do I have a second? Ms. Cox, thank you. All in favor, if you could raise your hand just so that I could see. Perfect. Motion carries 6-0. Ms. LaRoque.
Shonda, congratulations.
Yes.
We can.
Thank you so much. I'm very excited.
Good.
Hey, by the way, do you decorate other houses? I'm not. Well, we appreciate the great work that you've been doing, and know that you'll carry that forward. So, anyway.
Thank you so much. I can tell you much I appreciate this opportunity.
We on the board say congratulations. I think we all are can you see us all, and we'll wave. So thank you for joining us tonight, even
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Take care.
Okay, moving on. Dr. Rogers.
Thank you, Ms. Sells, Board. Our cornerstone tonight is about community engagement, and I seek out accurate information to represent my classroom. Of course, we've begun having some community meetings regarding some potential boundary adjustments and other ways that we try to engage our community. We'll talk about calendar. We'll certainly be seeking information through a survey for our parents and students and staff. So anyway, we felt like that was an appropriate item.
Okay. Thank you, Dr. Rogers. Persons desiring to address the Board of Trustees had an opportunity to fill out a speaker's card prior to the meeting tonight, and there are no speakers. So we will move on to discussion items. And once again, Dr. Rogers.
Yeah, you're back up to me. I'm sorry. This, as you know, is a very weird time, and, we were asked by the board to revisit the calendar in December, as we're doing. I would tell you, I don't think this should be or will be the last time we discuss the 2021 calendar. And so we're going to talk about that a little bit this evening. And, of course, the next week at the December 14th meeting is when you're going to begin discussing the 21-22 calendar. And I don't think even once you tentatively approve that will be the only time that the 21-22 calendar will have to at least be discussed. So it's just a weird time, as we all know. So can y'all put up, oh, there you go. I'm looking at my screen. Okay, so here we go. Got it. So just a few reminders. I know our board remembers this, but this might be for those that are watching. We have 7.5 days of instructional minutes banked. Remember that we're required to have at least 75,600 minutes in an instructional year. We originally had 8.5 days banked, but we used one of those days to take care of the election day on November 3rd, where we didn't have school for students. My goal is for us to chunk these calendar discussions and really go about 2 months at a time. not to worry about what the end of school should look like, because I think it's too early in December to decide what to do at the end of the school year. So really my focus, and I hope the board is okay with this, is that we focus on just the next couple of months. And of course, we don't want to use all of our banked days because we might actually need them in March or April or May. And of course, you have to remember that we also could use some of these banked minutes if we had more than 2 bad weather days. And I know we've been very fortunate the last few years with bad weather days, but I will tell you, if you remember, and many of you will, that my first year when I was interim superintendent in 2015, we had like 4 ice days. And so you would have to use some of those banked minutes after the 2 bad weather days that we build into the calendar. So some background information. I know you've seen this and seen it also on the news, but LISD and Denton County and all of this area is seeing an increase in positive COVID cases, and we always see an increase in positive COVID cases 7 to 10 days after the holidays. And of course, that's sort of what, and we had last Monday 350 plus COVID call center calls. Today we had, as of 3 o'clock today, about over 300. So the volume is there. All right. And so, we know that it's not just about COVID cases, positive COVID cases, but then the quarantining that ripple effect. The good news, as we mentioned to you, I think last Friday, is the new Centers for Disease Control modifications to quarantine, which we are absolutely, right now we're working on the 10 days, moving from 14 days to 10 days, and then we will roll out the 7 days testing out after we work on the logistics of that. We've got to figure out how to track it, when, because a person can be tested on day 5, 6, or 7 to then test out on after day 7. And so we're working on that. We actually had a meeting this afternoon. Just once again, cannot express enough appreciation to Dr. Fitzhugh, Melanie Vincelette, Jeff Kaj, and Bailey Fry, and just enormous amount of work that they do every day trying to keep track of this. And then, of course, we're really glad to give our parents this option of making pathway changes every 9 weeks. But with that, and I know you understand that, it actually adds a lot of work to our staff at the start of every grading period because of the rescheduling of students. And so we shared with you, and I know Dr. Fitzhugh sent you the 2 options. Please know these are just sort of starting points. But we shared with you 2 options, and so you have in your packet the spreadsheet, and so you can see the first column is what we're currently doing for 2021. Okay, so it looks like this. Everyone find it? And so you can see that it has that we plan to end school early, on the 26th of May. You can see where we, in January, on Wednesday, January 6th, we have a work day. We added, of course, the 460 minutes beginning August 18th, or 19th, I'm sorry. And so, that's allowed us to bank, once we finish 460 minutes through the rest of the year, that allows us to bank 7.5 days. So I do want to take a second and sort of remind people why we asked you to consider banking minutes back, I think that was in July, seems so long ago. There were a lot of reasons. One, we felt like we needed, with the new protocols for COVID, we needed to provide extra time because we were going to stagger arrival and dismissal time. We were going to stagger hall passing periods. We were going to stagger lunches And if you didn't add that extra 25 minutes, we were going to be cutting into instructional time. And so that's what we asked you to do, and you approved that. And one of the things that we're going to discuss later is the discussion about whether or not to keep those 25 minutes for the rest of the school year, which will be our recommendation. The other thing that changed from when we asked you to extend the day by 25 minutes is, if you remember, we said it may take us some time to pivot if we have to shut down and go to remote learning, that it may take us some time to pivot, and so we would have to use some of those bank days to pivot. Well, what we found out is that our staff, thanks to a lot of great training and just their hard work, we can pivot quicker than a couple of days. We actually did that with Griffin Middle School, where we made the decision the Monday before Thanksgiving that we need to shut down and go to remote learning for Griffin Middle School, and we did it beginning Tuesday and didn't miss a beat. So we feel good about the flexibility for us to pivot quicker than we had originally thought. So if you look at this chart, you can see option 1 is the exact same as as the first column, except that we made some consideration for some changes. And if I miss something, Dr. Fitzhugh, jump in. If you look at the first column, we have a work day on January 6th, and then we have students reporting January 7th and 8th. In the second column, which is option 1, we've done away with the work day on January 6th, and we've turned January 7th and 8th into work days, which means that would be students would not be in school. So let's talk about that for a few minutes, because there's been a lot of interesting discussion I think we're going to do that. There's been a lot of interesting discussion about that. One is, our initial thought about considering that is that it would give us more time for families to quarantine before they returned back to school. And so if you look, there's 2 major gatherings probably of families over this holiday. One, Christmas Eve, and then of course New Year's Eve. And so we have a slide in a minute that will show you this. If you look at this regarding New Year's Eve being December 31st, if you count to January 7th, which would be the first student day in our current calendar, that would be day 6 or 7 following New Year's Eve gathering. And so if we waited and pushed the start of school for students back to January 11th, that would be day 10 or 11. Now, a little bit of the fallacy of that thought is, when we were having discussions with Denton County health officials, they liked the idea. They thought, hey, it made sense. But they also said, hey, a lot of people are going to be traveling after the holiday. In other words, there's still a lot of travel back and forth, so our 10 days or 7 days may not really work because they're traveling the weekend before January 11th. So it's really, in my opinion, sort of a toss-up as far as what to do with those days. You can use those days, just leave it as is, and we could use those 2 days later. And I'm going to talk to you a little bit about what the preference of staff is about spreading some days out, some 3-day weekends or some work days throughout the spring, the second semester. But the dilemma is, we need to absolutely hear from you as far as what you think we should do on this situation, because we can't wait. And we're going to ask if you want for us to do away with the work day on January 6th and turn the 7th and 8th to work days, which means no students, we've got to communicate that to our families. And so that's why we would then create an action item for you regarding calendar next Monday night. So I know that's a lot of stuff, but I wanted to sort of just take this one step at a time. So once again, the consideration is, do we want to switch January 6th from a work day? That doesn't burn any of our banked days, but us making the 7th and 8th teacher work days and students not reporting does burn 2 of our banked days. And so with that, I'm gonna ask for some discussion, questions, whatever, and either myself or Dr. Fitzhugh or Dr. Miller can answer those, and then we'll just move to the next question. So
We're going to start over on my right tonight, and so Ms. Prosnick, do you have, and if we could limit it to 1 or 2 questions and go around the table.
So on this, the only thing I really like is that it does give counselors 2 days back at the front end to make any changes, and it doesn't box them into, I'll be really buttoned, just even 1 day. I think that our counselors have really done a lot of heavy lifting, especially with our schedule changes every 9 weeks, and I think that that would definitely give them that opportunity to be able to make sure that students were where they needed to be and so forth. It does mean that students come back and do a full week, which was one of the things that we'd always talked about, that we liked a midweek start after a long break. So,
well, and also you're absolutely right on the counselor thing, and you could, Ms. Prosnick, leave the 6th as a work day, make Thursday a work day, but it really doesn't make sense to ask students to come for 1 day. They're
that's
not
cruel.
coming.
I think that's
Half
cruel
of
and
them aren't
unusual
coming,
punishment.
You
so
know, and
I
so
wouldn't be for
we
that.
absolutely discussed that. And the other thing that, I know Ms. Hassett's going to ask, so I'll preempt her a little bit, is about the number of days in the second semester. And you can see that up at the top. Dr. Fitzhugh has absolutely calculated that according to what option. And please know, we're not saying, as I said at the first, that it's got to be one of these 2 options. It can be a hybrid.
Because that's my next question. Is there, it was a funny meme at one point, but I do think it does bear. Is there such a thing as a bad weather day anymore, since we can turn on a dime to do remote learning?
No, that's a great question. We legally have to right now have what we call bad weather days, 2 of them. The law requires that. But I'm looking at Dr. Miller, I knew it used to be that way when I was in charge of the calendar. But you're absolutely right, I think, with the ability to turn and pivot so quickly, really I think the state may have to relook at that concept of quote-unquote bad weather day.
Ms. Hassett?
My question originally was the fall 2020, the left column says fall 80 and option 1 says fall 79. Did we lose a day in the fall?
Sarah, she's looking.
I think probably on the first one I counted a half and a half as 1 instead of doing it.
Okay. I kept looking and I couldn't figure it out.
That's my guess, is that we have those 2 half days.
I have done the same thing when I've added it up. Yep.
So I apologize.
No. I just want to make sure I wasn't missing something, because there's a lot of little numbers.
Yeah, I know it.
I guess really, I don't have any other questions. I'm heavily reluctant to decrease instructional days. So.
Well, I think that's all of us. I think it's something we have to, to weigh both sides of it. So.
I understand the idea of using the banked minutes for the professional work days and having the teachers take a full holiday. There's a lot of instruction that still needs to be done, and I'm not sure that I like it.
Okay.
Mr. Miller?
I've got one question, so I'll preface it with my comments. When we agreed to kind of review the calendar and the status, there was a different place in time. There were a lot of uncertainties, things changing, and I think a couple things are true. One is the overall impact of the pandemic is greater than we thought. We see more kids out, teachers out, more contact tracing, et cetera. The other side of that is I think we're much more efficient and effective than we thought in both of the learning models, or three learning if you take Virtual Plus, right? So that would compel me not to consider any changes. I don't think we should take this as an opportunity to change something because there's no real materiality. And if you put before the board an opportunity to change a calendar, it's likely that the board will always tweak it. And so you may want to reconsider putting it in front of the board. But given that...
Well, the board has to approve the calendars.
Well, but the calendar, we have a calendar in place.
Yes,
and
absolutely.
So we don't have to approve anything. We could let the one we have run out.
Oh, you're absolutely right,
Yeah.
which is why that first column's still there. Yeah.
That's right. So
Yeah.
I think that is a preferred model. As it relates
I
to...
think, Mr. Miller, let me interject. I think the board at some point is going to have to make a decision about, this is just my opinion, I don't think you want to end the school year with 7.5 days banked. I think that's going to look bad to staff and to parents that, okay, we went this extra time and yet you never used any of it and we never benefited from any of it, I think is problematic. But
So, again, I think that you prefaced it with we should look at things in 2-month increments.
Yeah.
Right. So if we say, looking at this the 14th, or what to do something, let's say we didn't do anything on the 14th. 2 months is February. We have a chance to adjust the fourth 9 weeks.
absolutely.
I think it begs the question, as it relates to what we do in those 4 weeks, what level of efficacy do we have in the current scope and sequence? So one of the things when I hear we have to, or see, we have to have instruction through the 14th because of STAR, right? So we have to, we need to make, we can't end school before the 14th because of STAR.
Of May.
Well, of May,
Yeah.
yeah.
I think it's actually the 15th. Is it the 14th or 15th? But you're right. There is a date that even if you had banked minutes, you cannot end school.
Right.
Is it the 14th? Yeah. Yeah. Okay.
So I think we'd all agree that we would never want to teach to a STAR calendar under normal conditions, right? If we had the perfect world. And therefore, the scope and sequence takes us beyond the 14th. This is one of the criticisms, right? You go to think about when we had a tour a couple years ago and STAR ends and kids don't come to school, so they have, hey, raffle off bikes and that type of thing to get kids to come to school. The question is, does the scope and sequence allow for many adjustments at the end of the school year? So when we look at the 25 minutes as an example, while that is banking minutes, which can be effectively translated into days, what if we are not at the point in our scope and sequence that it should be ended by the 15th or the 16th or 17th? Has that been looked at, especially in classes where that scope and sequence is really important to complete?
Yeah, Dr. Rapp and her folks have been a part of this. There's no doubt that that's one of the reasons why I think we have to chunk this. Is we don't need to be making decisions tonight or next Monday about the end of the school year. We just need to, hey, if we want to make any of these changes, y'all land on it, approve it next week where we can notify folks. If not, it's okay. I mean, we're okay either way. I mean, me personally, I don't like to have 3 weeks off. I mean, and I'd prefer to have it spread out. But that's just me personally. But some of our staff, and I'm going to give you the principal's input and some of my teacher groups' input in just a minute. But
Okay. So basically, from a scope and sequence, we probably don't have anything big tonight, right? So it would then compel me to say that there's nothing necessitating a change at this juncture. And if we get, here's the thing, if we build a reputation that every time the board considers the calendar, what will happen is people will start to provide input to us when we probably should do it in a more compelling event, right? And I don't think there's a compelling event right now.
Yeah, well, I will tell you what predicated us to at least discuss the 7th and 8th was, and you can look at it data-wise, after every holiday, even Halloween, the numbers surge. And so we were just trying to see, would it make sense for us to be proactive, that we give a few more days for people to get out of quarantine, self-isolation, to where when we did return to school, we're in the clear. I told you that it's a little muddy as to, you might be in the clear if the last time they got together with family was December 31st, but if they all rode in a car, the weekend before the 11th, then it's all out the window,
Right.
So it is. It's a little, it's muddy.
And that's why I think that maybe a message that reinforces responsibility during that time, that, we may end up, for example, I think you have within your jurisdiction every ability to say after the new year, based on the current conditions, we're going to suspend those midweek workday and classes, if you had to, right? If there was that much tension with what's going on in the community, I think you can say, I'm going to delay it, right? The board doesn't have to do anything now to allow that flexibility. You have that flexibility under TEA to make the decision to say, hey, I'm not going to go back.
No, I don't.
You can do it in a modified model.
Yeah, I don't have the authority to say. I have the authority, I guess, to cancel school due to bad weather, but as far as changing the calendar officially, the only time I don't know that I have the authority to do that. I guess, we could find out, but yeah. I'm fine if you want to give me the authority. I promise you, I'll consider it seriously. All right.
Okay, Ms. Lasan?
Dr. Rogers, you actually kind of stole what I was going to say. Whenever I, as a mom of young kids, when I look at a 3-week break, in between, it just, that's just the only way I can sum it up.
Ryan's not listening.
So, yes. So I guess to me, and I think it might be more beneficial for everyone, especially our teachers and such, is if we could, to me, I like, the 6th is a work day, that's great, leaving that like it is, but I would prefer to maybe sprinkle in a few more days as we go along in the calendar of a Friday off, or, another work day, or whatever it is. Or, at the 4th 9 weeks, put in a couple more work days for, the counselors and whatever to get, schedules adjusted. I think that would just be my opinion, because honestly, I get what you're saying as far as, the quarantining and all that in that time frame, but, people are going to travel, people are going to do what they're going to do. So I'm not sure how effective that would be. That's just my opinion.
And Ms. Lasan, if Dr. Rapp, and I know she's on the WebEx, she would tell you when this first came up, I was dead set against the idea. And then I sort of flip-flopped because of the surge, and just at least the discussion of, does it make sense to help us with the quarantine numbers and the cases after a long holiday that really is 2 holidays. That was the only reason why we're bringing it up. But me personally, I'd rather save some of those days.
Yeah, I just think about parents who need to go back to work, and
I agree.
What are they going to do with their kids?
Yeah,
And
I think it's absolutely a question that folks that we have to consider.
Ms. Cox?
So to kind of reiterate kind of what my fellow board members have said, I agree, Ms. Lasan. People are going to travel. They're going to go where they want to go. People are not going to be quarantined. So I'm in support of banking those extra days. To Ms. Hassett, I don't like kids losing instruction time either. And to Ms. Prosnick, I feel that the counselors, so I'm anxious to hear what they have to say. My child will be home for 3 weeks too, and I have to go to work. So I get it. But I think the longer we can make our kids, be at home and quarantine and start back, because we are seeing it in the numbers here in our district. I mean, you said, 300-something calls today? I mean.
Yeah, and that was early. We still had 3 hours plus for the COVID call center. So.
Right. So, I mean, we're just going to keep increasing those numbers.
Yeah, and we're fine with that input. We just wanted to put it in front of you as a discussion item. So.
I did have one more statement really quick.
Well, and
Yeah, and then let me read to you the input
Ms. Sells
after.
has
I know
it.
Ms. Sells has some input, and then I just want to read to you the input that we got from principals and some teacher groups.
Okay, and that was my concern was, the principals have had input, but I wanted to make sure that our teachers have had input in that too. And I know that this goes, and I wanted to see if you could maybe touch on that this goes beyond actual seat time in a classroom. This goes, and you did a little bit there in the beginning, but this encompasses that extra 25 minutes in those alternate passing periods, those things that have increased time-wise, just to give staff a little bit more flexibility and to where they're more comfortable. Could you address that? And then also to Mrs. Prosnick's point, those 2 days, if we were to consider this, the 2 days for counselors, would that also not be true for teachers who, when we're making changes, who are maybe changing their pathway of instruction?
Yeah,
So
no,
those
there's no
2
doubt, Ms. Sells, some of the input from principals and the teacher groups, and when I say teacher groups, I'm talking about my teacher advisory group, which consists of 35 teachers from across the district, and then the superintendent teacher council, which is a teacher rep from all 68 campuses. So we had some, discussion with them, and all of them believed, first off, that additional work time, particularly at the start of grading periods, was very helpful to cover a teacher that was, maybe the teacher started as a virtual teacher, the second 9 weeks they became an in-person teacher, and by the luck of the draw, now they have to go back to virtual. Now, I don't think that's going to happen that much, because we've seen now the results of December 4th and the deadline for pathways. We inched up in person in all categories, unless it changed drastically on Friday, and Dr. Rapp can add to that. But there's no doubt. Now, the problem with trying to create 2 work days is the only way to do that would be to take one of their holidays away from them, because, once again, as we were discussing with Ms. Prosnick, it doesn't make sense to have the 6th the work day, the 7th the work day, and students come on the 8th. I mean, that's, so that's the dilemma. And so if that's the suggestion, I would just say, hey, leave it the same. The good thing about us making December 4th, which was 2 weeks before the end of, is we do have some time now to work on schedules as of last Friday, And I think it is good news that most folks are staying where they're at. I think on average it's just 1 or 2 percentage points so it's not large numbers at any campus that are asking for a pathway change. So I think those make it workable, not best. I mean, we all created this calendar before COVID hit, but we knew that there was a work day needed before the second semester. As far as other teacher input, we have not sought other teacher input because we felt like we needed to seek your input before. It just so happened that the principal groups and the teacher groups we were meeting with, so we floated the balloon. Let me just give you some principal input just in general. The elementary principals, one of the questions that we put in front of them is, would you want to see the 25 minutes, the banked minutes, go away? Let's say at the 4th 9 weeks you go back and dial it back to 435 minutes instead of 460. The answer unequivocally for all 3 principal groups is no. And the reason for that is, once again, they're still having to do all the protocols, staggered arrival, staggered dismissal, staggered hall passing time, and they've spent a lot of work building their schedules. If you can think of an elementary school trying to build those schedules with specials and all that and all these moving pieces, they pleaded, please don't do that. And so one of the questions we're going to put to you at the end of this discussion is, would you at least agree that we keep the 25 minutes in place for the rest of the school year, which is our recommendation? Some other things that the principal said, hey, we don't want to lose instructional time by rolling back the 25 minutes. Some of the principals said, sprinkling in some work days, sort of like some, taking, adding an additional work day, for instance, at the first of the fourth 9 weeks, might help. We didn't get too much into the end of the school year. I will tell you the high school principals are a little concerned if you roll back the end of the school year too far, because it starts to affect graduation practice. If hopefully we have graduation, but we'll have graduation, but probably very, I don't know that we'll have it with 8,000 people in the Coliseum, but we'll keep our fingers crossed. We're having that discussion starting tomorrow, by the way. And then, principal said, hey, could it be a hybrid approach? Could it be a little bit of both? Save some days, sprinkle in. One of the recommendations on looking at February is, President's Day is actually right now an in-service day. Make that a holiday for teachers and students. Well, that cost us 1 day of banked minutes, which we're going to talk about in a minute. But my point is, it doesn't have to be either or. It can be either and. All right, so.
One other thing I'd like to say is that you mentioned that staff might be frustrated if we don't use some of the banked minutes, but really this is caused by the legislature changing us from days to minutes, and we would have put a lot of these in place if we wouldn't have had to worry about minutes of the day. If we would have just still had calendar days of the year, we would have still had, and then we wouldn't have had to deal with banked minutes. So
we've always banked some extra minutes, usually a couple of days. Ms. Hassett, we've never banked this many, and I think you're right. You, with our input, made the best decision we could back in July with what was an unknown. I still, it might be easy to blame TA, but they're going to come to us to say, hey, why do we have 7.5 extra days, and we end the school year that way. Now, can we do that? Absolutely. They're on a contract, our teachers, and, our non-exempt staff certainly, they work the same days, they get paid. So, it's not like we have to do anything. We just want to put in front of you options as far as, looking at our calendar.
So do you need more direction from us?
Okay, let me just make sure I understand. So I think the direction from the board is regarding the 6th, 7th, and 8th of January to leave it as is. Is that?
I'll go with the majority.
Okay. That's the way I get.
I'll go.
Yes. Leave it the same. Leave it the same. Okay, so that helps us a great deal. So let's talk about, so that takes care of January, because remember, we're only chunking a couple of months. Yeah.
I think from teachers and principals, and want to reiterate a couple things because you probably got some audience.
You may want to pull this.
You got some audience here. Is one, there's a strong communication vehicle to leverage those principal meetings every month, or your delegates from the campus for teachers to get their thoughts to you, right, for the recommendation to us, you and Dr. Fitzhugh and Dr. Rapp. The second thing is, I think that maybe some reinforcement around the messaging as to why, their contracts are days, not minutes, the importance of the minutes. I think they understand that. But what's happening is, and why I think we all understand that teachers will say they don't have enough time to educate the kids. And we will say, well, here's an opportunity to do it, or we, meaning the district. And then they will say, but the problem is you stack all these things in the scope and sequence that affects our ability to be effective. It might be helpful for you all to reconcile that with them, right? So that they have a better understanding of how that might come together.
Yeah, and I think, Mr. Miller, the other thing they'll tell you is that their workload, just due to COVID and all the stuff, because you have to remember, some of our teachers are teaching pure in person, and that's great that we were able to do that. Some of our teachers are teaching pure virtual, but there's some of our teachers that are doing both or a combination, particularly when kids go out on quarantine. And so their plates as a teacher before COVID were already full, and now, just because of the mechanisms of taking attendance and all the different things, I mean, and so that's where they say, hey, we just need a day every once in a while just to sort of feel like we can catch up and catch our breath instead of having to work till 9 or 10 o'clock every night to get it done. And so, we all are working more hours than ever before, but that's just the input that they've provided. So, there was something else I was going to say, but no. As far as the survey, we can absolutely create some type of survey. Once again, we didn't want to create anything until we had this initial conversation with the board. But we can certainly, but I don't want to put a choice on the survey that's not a choice, because that'll really make them even more mad, So, Ms. Lasan, I think we're all good as far as that. So if you look then at option 1, then we'll move that back to the first column. So we'll have a work day on January 6th. We'll have school days on January 7th and 8th. Now look further down into February. Remember, I wanted to chunk this January, February. If you look at the first column, February 15th that's President's Day, right? And we're getting 460 minutes there because of the professional learning waiver. It's a student holiday already. So the second change in the option 1 column is to make that a holiday for staff and students. That's still, because it's professional learning waiver, it burns a day, but students are already off, and so that might be a way to sprinkle a day off when it doesn't affect instruction. So that was another idea, and I know I've got a slide about that. Oh, nope. There you go. So we'll come back to March 8th, all right? So I'd like to get your input on
That day.
February 15th.
Okay. Ms. Hassett?
I'm in favor.
She's in favor. Mr. Miller?
I'm in favor of not making any changes to the current calendar.
Okay.
Ms. Lasan?
Yeah, my only question there is, does this affect how many minutes teachers are supposed to have of professional learning?
Dr. Miller, can you help us with that?
Okay.
Over 5 years, but not.
Okay. Okay.
And we
So it's-
provide much more than,
Oh, I have no doubt. I just
Yeah.
wanted to, okay. Yes, I'm in favor of making that a holiday for all.
okay?
Ms. Cox?
Yes, I'm in favor.
I'm in favor
And I'm in favor.
of making it a holiday. We'll
Yeah,
make
of
that
making
very
it a
clear.
holiday.
Okay. Well, we'll build a calendar with that. The only other thing, if you look on this slide, is March 8th to a work day, and this really goes in the way that our 9 weeks falls is the third 9 weeks ends a week before spring break. And so it's rather strange, but if you wanted to put a work day at the start of the fourth 9 weeks, it would need to be on Monday, March 8th, which goes back to the question that Ms. Prosnick asked about, okay, all these pathway changes and so on. And so you can see, You can see that on option 1 down at the bottom. Is that right? Yeah. For March, is that March 8th?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, where it says workday. I'm sorry, I'm looking in the wrong month. So,
Mr. Miller?
I got his.
Okay.
Well, so you're moving it, you're basically moving. I mean.
No,
No,
this
we're
is an
creating a
additional
workday.
You
workday.
give a day off, and then,
It would burn, as it says up this would use one banked day, and this would build in a day for staff to prepare for the last 9 weeks, between the third and the fourth 9 weeks. It's strange placement because you got a week before spring breaks, but the purpose is you build in a work day for people to make the change for the last 9 weeks.
Okay. Ms. Lasan?
Yes, I definitely think that's a good idea. I mean, would it also, while we're still talking about March, I mean, would it behoove us to add an extra day off, to the beginning of spring break? Like just a complete holiday, like on Monday or something? The day after? Like, so on the 22nd?
You could extend spring break by a day if you
'Cause
wanted to.
That would burn an extra
We don't have that model here, but absolutely you could. And actually, that was a suggestion from a few principals of where to place a day off if you wanted to put a day off.
Right, and that's kind of what I was saying as far as like, if we're talking about using some banked days, that would be a good place to put it. I do like using a work day at that first day of the 9 weeks so that, teachers and counselors can use that day, but.
I think if you look at the calendar and, even way back in history when myself and then Dr. Bonner picked up the calendar, we tried to have some 3-day weekends, sporadic, but every once in a while. So if you look at the current, if you look at March 2nd and March 5th, you see that there's a Friday and a Monday. You go 3 weeks later and you see a day off the week of April 27th. So we've tried to spread days off. Our calendar committee, has done a good job with that. So, it's.
That may just be throwing something else out there that you don't want to talk about right now, and that's fine.
It's something we can certainly discuss.
Yeah. But if you're just asking about the work day, that's fine.
I'm trying to get us at least through February and if possible through that up to spring break.
Okay, work day, yes.
Okay?
Ms. Cox?
Yes, I think you're going to need it because I think more kids are going to be coming back to school as we end the school year. So it's going to be a lot of work for our teachers to get prepared.
Okay?
I'm in favor.
Okay?
Okay, Ms. Hassett, and I'm
In favor.
Yeah, and I'm in favor too of that work day. I think that if not, you're going to get teachers that just basically never stop working on that Friday because they won't have the opportunity.
Okay, so let me just in summary make sure I didn't miss something, okay? So Dr. Fitzhugh and Dr. Miller are going to build an option of we're going to keep the work day on January 6th, keep the instructional days on January 7th and 8th. We're going to turn February 15th to a day off for all. It was already a student day off. And then we're going to make Monday, March the 8th, a work day because that's the first day of the fourth 9 weeks. And that's the only changes that we're going to bring forward next week for y'all to approve, and then we'll discuss what to do after that at a future date. Does that work?
Yes.
Yes,
Okay.
works for me. Does anybody have any, the only thing I would ask is that if anybody has any direction to give for the remaining, if they have a preference, and I'm only saying that because I would much rather have a 4-day school week than to
and to continue instruction in a great manner than to take these huge chunks of time out in between. And that's moving forward in your discussions. I think if you had maybe direction from us, that might help your group. It would give you a pivot point, or just jump off point. So,
well, I think I understand it.
Okay.
At least listening to everyone, a little bit of a direction that will apply, for the future. I guess the only thing that would help a little bit for Dr. Miller and Dr. Fitzhugh, I'm just the pretty face getting to deliver this good news, is what do you think about ending the school year early? Because that's probably the next biggest question.
How early?
Well, if you look, the school year is supposed to end on May 26th, and so it wouldn't make sense that if you don't want to end it on May 24th, and have one day, so it'd be 2.5 days early.
So let me throw a wrench in.
Sure.
Let me just throw a wrench in. Because I don't know exactly what all the rules are around STAR testing. But could some of those be half days?
Yeah, and
do you understand what I'm
actually,
saying? In that, because I think that could help a lot of things.
And actually, for high schools, 2 half days is not a bad deal,
right,
because they're taking 2 tests on one day and 2 tests now. We have to remember, though, other than high schools, the middle schools, they're taking more. I think they spread their tests over 3 days, if I'm not mistaken. Ms. Lewis, is that right? Middle schools. Middle
school finals?
Middle schools spread their tests out over 3 days? 3 days. Okay. So.
But is it testing from 8 a.m. to 4?
No.
But that's my point. Like, could we make those 3 half days instead? And I don't know what those rules are.
And I don't think there's anything regarding.
I hate half days.
That's
the
just an
STAR
option.
test that would. I don't think. As long as we have the minutes banked and we finish with 75,600 minutes,
right,
I think you can do. We have to. You have to remember, when you have half days, there are some implications for transportation. There's implications for kids getting meals.
I told you it was a wrench.
Yeah. No, you're right. I just want to make sure the.
There are some kids who have extended time for testing and longer in the day,
Okay.
so you would have to keep the full day.
Okay.
They typically only give 2, maybe 3 tests max in one day.
Because
over the 3 days.
they're trying to spread it out.
That would be the only consideration.
But we can create some models. All she has to do is plug stuff in, and y'all can at least look at it in the future.
I just didn't know if that could be an option instead of kids staying at school all day when they're STAR testing. Give them a break.
Yeah.
So there are a couple things that I'm not necessarily in favor of. Number one, 4-day school week in whatever fashion. Dr. Burnett and Dr. Waddell looked at that when they were here. It was, it's different now. We've got parents who are trying to go back to work. It's a major disruption to the current environment. And then it's not where districts have done this, and there are not many, it's very unpopular with the community, in particular law enforcement, right? So that's one. The second thing is, I think we could nuance again, it's a great discussion point, 3 half days or whatever. I think we're tweaking it, we're overthinking this. Parents and students need to be in school. Even if we think they're done, there's value in that for some. We're applying to it a plausibility that fits within the way we live our lives, which may not be attractive to other folks that have jobs or need their kids to be at school or ESD, et cetera. And I would just offer that we should limit our options here and make sure they're very surgical and specific, and that there's a high degree of accountability for it. It just, we could let school out, go to half days, but then what are you going to do for elementary? And then what those elementary kids are going to go to an extended ESD, and then you got the transportation issues. Again, we don't need to tweak this. We don't need to give the minutes back. course. The days are the issue from a contract perspective.
Yeah,
I think
and-
that's your bigger issue.
Yeah, and that's I probably should have brought up when you mentioned contract issue, because it's actually now a misnomer. Contracts for teachers don't have the number of days in them. They used to, Mr. Miller, and so I was actually under the same, but they don't have the number of days. So it's not an issue with contracted staff. Now, if you turn some days off, what is an issue is with non-exempt staff, hourly people, because if y'all don't pass a resolution, if they don't work, they don't get paid, versus teachers going to get paid. So that's something that you're going to hear about in the future. But you as the board are really the ears of LSD in the community. So, if you hear, input, just pass that on. And I totally agree, Mr. Miller, we can't let a few, whether it's teachers, whether it's parents, whatever, dictate what's best for our decision. But I think we have to listen to our community and, at least seek, their input somehow. And if y'all want us to, we can certainly create a survey. I just don't want to create a survey and put a choice on there that's really not a choice. That's problematic. So
I don't have it. Because I think you were talking about survey when I was talking. I'm not advocating a survey.
Yeah.
I'm advocating that what I'm suggesting is, for those who are listening, there's a process by which you have teachers come to you in an official capacity, and they represent the campus, and they have campus leaders. And while I understand that some have hesitations about that process, they're concerned about whether it's confidential or whatever, I think it's very confidential and it's highly effective. And so I'm endorsing that as a communication vehicle. If we survey, we are going to get input. What are we going to do? What if they all say they want it a certain way and we're like, we can't do that? I'm not sure that. I think there's avenues for them to provide feedback. They should leverage that, and if they want to reach out to us, they're going to do it anyway. And we'll obviously forward those emails to you.
Yeah.
So it gets you anyway.
Yeah, and I promise you, if we ask teachers, whether it's my teacher group or a group of teachers, if, hey, would you like to have an additional 3-day weekend or an additional work day? Their answer, 99.9%, is going to be, of course, So, who wouldn't take that? So,
and I think back to his original question, and just to clarify, I wasn't for an all 4-day week school year, but I didn't want to add longer in the chunks.
Yeah.
I would rather have maybe these every few weeks, a work day, or that day switch to a day off, rather than adding to those chunks that are already there. I think that's kind of counterproductive.
Yeah,
to
I think
instruction.
y'all have given us some direction that we can build for our next discussion, which will be sometime in mid-February.
So we were back to, would we be open to ending the school year early? And so that 26th is on a Wednesday, and we were talking about graduations, and I think you had mentioned something, Ms. Prosnick. You were.
Oh, well, no, I'm not in favor. I'm concerned about ending the school year. If we took all the bank days off at the end, you're talking about ending the school year. If just doing what we've done so far, that still leaves us 5 banked days by my very rough calculation. So you're talking about ending school 5 days early, and I'm not in favor of that.
Yeah, and please know, I wouldn't suggest, we have finished school years with bank time, so I wouldn't suggest take 5 days off. But the question you might look at is, do you want to take the last 2.5 days, which goes into a new week,
No.
And that's the question, not 5. And we may not have the time. I think, once again, our purpose is to save some of this to make sure we get through these different phases before we just use it all, and then we might need it.
When the
if not for COVID.
the April blizzard hits, and
Yes.
And you know, you look at April, I mean, we have some pretty good holidays in there, you know? I mean, with, you know, a 4-day Easter weekend and so on, so, you
Ms.
know.
Hassett, did you?
I'm not in favor of ending it early, just because it rolls everything up, rolls Dead Week up, it rolls curriculum up. I mean, it has more implications than just
Yeah,
this.
that's fine.
Okay. Mr. Miller, I think yeah. Ms. Lasan?
I actually would, be okay with it if it's, maybe if we end on, usually on if we're supposed to end on a Wednesday, if we end on that Friday, maybe, I would consider that.
Cox?
I'm not in favor.
Okay.
Okay. And I'm torn on the fence here. I think it would have been nice to have gotten out on a Friday, but at the same time, I don't want kids to lose instruction. And so I think that right now, we need to revisit it, and I don't think it needs to be decided now.
Yeah.
I think that we need to revisit it at that juncture. We may, as everything, nothing in this pandemic has come out to fruition as I expected it to. And so if we could just continue to have the discussion would be what I would ask.
Oh, we're still on the roller coaster, I promise. Okay, so the only other thing, and I made mention of this, is everyone on the board okay with keeping the minutes of instruction the same, 460, for the rest of this school
Yes.
year?
Yes.
I thought we were okay with that.
Yes.
Is that, and we explained why. Okay, and so the few changes that you have made, the February President's Day becoming a day off for all, and the work day for the start of the fourth 9 weeks, we're going to bring those two changes to y'all next week because we need to approve to where we can notify families, of that. And then it's not required, but if you want to pay non-exempt folks for one of those days, one's a work day, but when you turn it, if you want them to get paid, you're going to have to pass a resolution, which we'll talk about next week. But and Ms. Bay has already created that.
She's already typing.
And then once again, we'll meet again sometime in February to try to chunk out the next. It's just a weird time, so.
Bring your magic 8-ball.
That is all I got, thank goodness. Thank you all very much. Oh,
Now,
You get to go somewhere.
you keep going, you're still up.
I'm still up. Okay, so we have two things under schools and student activities. The first is a demographic update, the third quarter report, and we do have Rocky on with us. So Rocky, we greatly appreciate, and so if you'd walk them through, I think, have you shared it with, you're going to share your screen?
Can everybody hear me okay?
Yes.
Good evening. Good evening. Let me share my screen. Now, can you see that okay?
Yes.
We can.
Awesome. Well, good evening. I'm sorry I can't be there this time, but I think based on the discussion we were just having, I think we all know why. So, just send you a third quarter report. Some data that was collected through the end of September. So keep that in mind as we talk. And I think the first thing that I want to talk a little bit about is where we're at today. And, the enrollment for did that just,
That's good.
was it still there?
Yeah.
Okay. 49,111 students was the enrollment to down from just over 3,000 students. And we all know this is COVID impact. If we look at this enrollment decline, about 85% of that was in pre-K and pre-K and kindergarten represent over 1,000 student decline. Overall, pre-K through fifth is 85% of that 3,000. So we were expecting Lewisville to decline by about 400 students as per our projections. So obviously, this remaining difference is COVID impacted. Districts throughout the state, they've dropped by 5-6%. We believe that we might see enrollment in Texas drop by 100 to 150,000 students when enrollment comes out here in a couple of months from TPA, overall Texas enrollment. So strong declines. I've got a chart there at the bottom where you guys can see where some of these large declines are. Again, pre-K, kindergarten, where we saw the largest declines, but elementary over. I just want to show each other some of the clients that we work with around Lewisville. You can see that they're seeing some of the same challenges that Lewisville is seeing with decline enrollment, 5 to 7%. Community ISD was our only client that actually exceeded our forecast. So they continue to grow despite enrollment declines that many other districts saw. And of course, the economics, we've seen unemployment rates drop down to close to 6% in Dallas-Fort Worth area, now they're climbing back up, they're over 8%. And I think that we're probably, as we go into Christmas, are going to see them go up a little bit more, the shutdowns that we're seeing. So I don't know if this will cause any shifting in some of your student enrollment, but it's certainly going to be interesting as we go into next year. As far as housing goes, the housing market's been strong. Lewisville's closed 1,240 homes in the trailing 12 months, just staying quite consistently where we've been before, actually down just slightly in Lewisville, but inventory strong at 658 homes. And then your vacant developed lots with 1,554. So the lots have been delivered. They can still continue to go at the current pace for another year. That's, with low interest rates that we've seen, and I think that we've got families that are buying houses out of cycle. So they're buying houses a little bit ahead of time because there's some families, it's because they want to get out of an apartment, realizing that the two of us can't work here together because we've got to get out. So what we're going to be watching going forward is whether or not yields decrease, because I think with families buying homes out of cycle, then you're also going to see some young families getting homes before they actually have children. It'll be interesting to watch. If you look at the quarterly starts and closings, 245 starts in the third quarter, down a little bit, closings down also, but still close to over 300 homes. So you have to finish the year it's probably going to look more like, from a closing perspective, more like 2018, with about 1,100 closings when we get to the end of the year. But still just a solid year for builders, and in some areas they're actually exceeding their forecasts. So it's really been an interesting housing year. And this is the information by attendance zone. I don't think there's any real changes here. The Independence in Indian Creek, you see the most yellow, that's the highest activity. The cooler closings, you can see Blue Bonnet, Canby still strong closings. Most of Candy's closings, you can see there's a lot of high activity, vacant lots. That's in the stuff that's on the south side of the toll road. So not anything where your future schools is where most Candy's activity is at. Actually, it's where all of Candy's activities. This chart just shows your activities spread out. All the green polygons, keep in mind, represent subdivisions that have active development going on. The red outlines are areas where there's new lots being developed. So some of those new lots are being developed where there's currently active activity, and some of that's in the yellow where we have future home builds that are getting ready to be started. So a lot of that yellow work is housing activity that's getting ready to deliver lots. And then, of course, your new campus off Josie Lane, see they're developing more lots there as well. And multifamily is going to be a market to watch. There's nearly 2,700 multifamily units that are currently under construction in Lewisville. Those are shown here in the purple. And then there's about 4,000 that aren't age restricted that are also being planned. So there's going to be another 4,000 units. And there were 1,200 built last year. It's going to be interesting to watch the multifamily market because the multifamily market is going to be challenged a little bit with COVID. Not only they have some affordability issues, and they're losing renters to persons that are moving home, or moving to a new home. And so there are some challenges. With that, as we transition transition into housing forecast, you can see that our housing forecast, both single-family and multifamily, shows your forecasted housing begin to trend down. This is just a natural, we know the district is reaching kind of so I won't say complete build-out, because, in the farmland area, there's a lot of big land, but it's not, you're not going to see the dense of development that we're seeing out along the toll road there. But that area along the toll road is going to gradually build out. So we think in the next 5 years, you're going to see this begin to trail off. The red areas on there, represent multifamily. That's going to be interesting to see how they do as well. And then you can just see where we're forecasting this housing for the next 5 years, where we think that will happen. 5-year unit changes. You can see the darker the color, the more units that are going to get built. You've got about 5, you've got a lot of units that are going to be built in this Josie Lane area. Some of this is kind of dense, almost, even as a for sale product, it's almost a town product, not having very high yields right now. So that may change. But you do see some activity throughout the district. So speaking of yields, I talked for just a minute about yields a few minutes ago. The yields in Lewisville have been declining for several years. They've kind of dropped down to that 0.46. Eventually we were back at 0.54 just 5-6 years ago. Again, this is two things. It's price point. It's the type of, and then the type of house. A lot of it that's built into this now in the single family is also townhome product. We call it single family because it's a for sale product, but really it's a denser product that just doesn't yield as high just as these students. Your multifamily, you can see it's gone back and forth. The yields in multifamily are dropping. And that's because a lot of the new families, these multifamilies been the high-end product. It also does not necessarily yield a lot of students. And then if we look where your multifamily or high yields are, you can see we've got 11,270 students that reside in over 44,000 multifamily. Again, an overall yield 0.25. This one I want to show you just what that density looks like. The larger the red bubble here is, the higher the yield. Most of these have yields over one student unit. When you see the blue dots, all the blue dots you see here are yielding less than 0.25, so very, very low yielding apartments. As I transition to projections, I want to talk a little bit about kindergarten enrollment. As you know, we track kindergarten and we compare it to district births. And if you look where your birth rates have been, historically, Lewisville's they've captured about 95 and 96% of the babies that were born 5 years prior to entering kindergarten class. This year, that number dropped below 80%. Again, we believe this is COVID related. Believe it or not, we've never forecasted enrollment during the pandemic. Go figure. So this is a little bit new to us as well. But we do believe, as a company, Bob and I have looked at a lot of this, that we believe a lot of this is going to come back. A lot of this enrollment is going to come back next year. I think that Lewisville, there's 3,300 kindergarten students in Lewisville ISD. They just did not attend Lewisville ISD this year. So we're forecasting your kindergarten enrollment to go back up into the 90s, that 95 and 98% share. And what you're going to see on this next page is we're also forecasting your first grade to bounce back. And that's because we think those kindergarten students that aren't attending Lewisville for kindergarten are going to come back to the school district for first grade. So what we're forecasting is a growth next year. Now keep in mind, last year we were forecasting negative enrollment. But we think that you'll bounce back up in close to 50,000 students next year. That would be growth of about 800 students. A lot of that, we believe, are students that are already in your district. They're going to come back. Again, this is just based on, the belief that COVID has forced a lot of these students out. Long term, we think you're going to, you've got 49,000 is kind of a sweet spot for Lewisville. If we keep that kindergarten enrollment up in that 3,400, we need to stay up around 3,400 students. It's really amazing what can happen if a couple of years numbers of small kindergarten enrollment can have a long-term impact. We're also bringing your pre-K back. You can see the pre-K coming back to well over 1,000 students. I think, and I believe, and I kind of think that this pre-K could even be a little low. I think that you might even garner a bigger share back to that. By campus, you can, I know this is pretty small to look at. You may have this in front of you as well, but you can see our campus enrollments. We always include those. And all campuses, we think, again, your biggest bounce back, because that's where you lost the most students is going to be. This is over 1,300 enrollment increase at the elementary level. We're just trying to get them back to where we were pre-COVID, and it's not going to quite be there. But getting back to that 22.5 is important. And then, of course, we got the middle school and high school. Even though what you'll do is you'll see a few years down the road where these growth rates pick up a little bit, because some of that bounce back in elementary is going to take a little bit to get through the system. But we are going to see some growth rates kind of raise a little bit at the middle school and eventually up in the high school as well. 813 new students, and then we think that things could be pretty flat moving forward. So I realize that's pretty clear, but most districts in the state, I think, we can't put this in here just to kind of, feel appendix to say feel good, but the declines that we're seeing in Lewisville are no different than what we're seeing in other districts that we're working with, whether it's in Plano or Round Rock or other areas throughout the state. They experience much of the same. 1,285 groundworks underwent 1,285 lots, so there's going to be some student growth. We think you're going to add 1,000 to 2,000 new residential units a year for the next couple of years, and that's very strong. And you right at that 49,000 student number going forward. Oh, sorry. So with that, I'm happy to take questions, talk about COVID.
Thanks, Rocky.
Thank you. Does anybody have any questions? I'll start with Ms. Lasan.
I don't have any questions. Thank you for the report, though. It's great as always.
Thank you.
Ms. Cox?
I just have a question, Dr. Rogers, for you. Do we have any indication of where the kindergartners are? They just not attending school, or?
Yeah, they're just not attending school, and I think that's the response that's happening all over the state is those parents don't feel comfortable about sending their kids to school, and whether it's virtual or whatever. And Rocky and myself and Jeff Koch had that discussion. The question too is, did some of that deal with the immigration issues? Folks, and the parents went, to Mexico and they couldn't get back in. I mean, there's just a lot of what ifs that are just sort of up in the air. We had the discussion this morning. Probably the most difficult thing to staff for next year is going to be elementary schools, just because you don't know where that target is going to be. So, and I think we've got to absolutely be conservative on that, because we can't continue to staff for 2,000 more students than we have, and yet we've got to try to get as good of an indication as we can of how many kids might come back, as we determine staffing too. So.
And when does that the roundup start? The kindergarten roundup.
Dr. Rapp, we talked about it. I think when does the roundup start?
In January.
Yeah.
Because I think y'all are going to need to do maybe a reassessment, because I wouldn't feel comfortable in January, but maybe towards the end of the school year, I might feel comfortable. So, will there be a round 2 of roundups or no?
Well,
I mean,
there is always the possibility that there'll be a round 2, a round 3, or whatever during our COVID time. But we absolutely know that this year, going even into next year, is going to be very different.
Okay, thank you, Ms. Collins. Ms. Brownsnick?
Yes, Rocky, on your district housing overview page, the one that looks like this.
What's the number at the bottom, Jen?
There is 8.
Page 8.
Sorry. it says that we have 67 actively building subdivisions. My question is, of those subdivisions, how many of those are what you referred to as really the dense, single-family, townhome type housing, and not what I would normally refer to as a single home?
Right now, I have to, just a second, I can actually look at that, just a second here. This is a good thing about being on virtual, I think, because I can actually go back and look at this stuff. I'm trying to see where my research team put some in here and try to look at really some. There's been some bills. I could give you know, like the number of 67 or like total units or down.
Well, I'm just kind of curious, of the 67 that are building, how many of those are subdivisions that are townhomes?
Yeah, we've got villas, there's some townhome property,
I'm just curious really what kind of numbers we're looking at, and where are they going to go?
So, Rocky, is that some information you could do a little more research and just send it?
I don't need it this second.
Yeah. Just 67 and just get us.
I'm happy with that. Yep.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Ms. Hassett?
I had a question on page 16, Rocky. Three of our elementaries are potentially going down next year. I'm just wondering, because COVID already reduced, why are we decreasing? What's the reason? Is it because of build out? So Etheridge.
That's would be a large exiting plan. I'm sorry.
Etheridge, Heritage, and Highland Village all are decreasing even from this year and next year. I'm going to put myself right up. My guess would be an exiting class is pretty large. There's probably a big exiting class. At Etheridge, there's a 78 student fifth grade class, a 66 student kindergarten class. So you see a little bit of drop sometimes just because those big classes are out there. Okay.
I'd say that's probably the case for most of those.
Okay.
And I think that's actually the picture for LISD in general is we're graduating some large senior classes, but you compare that to what you're gaining as kinder classes, and there's sometimes 700, 800 difference, if not more. So
I was wondering, because if we get more kinder back, we're still losing students in net, and I just was.
Unfortunately, that's true. When we're growing your district, actually, we have absolute and cohort growth in Lewisville is well over 500, over 500 students the next few years. But because the size of these large exiting classes, that's where you see your negative enrollment. You've got 1,200 more students exiting in some cases.
Thank you. One more question, probably Dr. Rogers. Could we get numbers on how many of our students left for charters this year?
yeah, Jeff, can you get us how many students left for charters? And I think if we're going to provide that, we need to provide how many return from charters.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So.
Thank you.
Okay, Mr. Miller?
So, thank you, Rocky.
Yes, sir.
I think this tells a really bad story that we need to dig into, put some analysts into it. And here's why. If you look at 2019 to 2020, we were in the 53,000 range. When we bounce back to stop being negative, we actually have some incremental, we're down to 4911, then 49,925, then we drop down below the 4911 in the 24-25 time frame, drop down below 49,000, and we get back in 2031 to 30 to 31 to 49,397.
Yeah, I think. Go ahead.
Well, and this, to me, indicates an economic crisis for us because of recapture. So our numbers are going down, our property values are going up. And one of the things we know from NTASB, when Huberty spoke, he's going to put the responsibility back on districts to get those kids back. Find those kids and get them back. And so I think there's a big data initiative here to, one, map where are those kids? Why didn't they come back? And then within that, without criticism of the decisions we made, are there things that would bring them back? For example, is a modified mask policy one of those things? Are there kids that are stuck in their home country and not able to make it back? That we find out where these kids are and why they've left and how we get them back. Because if you start looking at those numbers, getting down below 49,000, there's no way for us to provide raises and incur increased expenses through cost of living when our enrollment is declining at a pretty significant numbers over last year.
Yeah, Rockwell, and I think you have to be careful about the 49, because that's COVID. Our projection for this year, Rocky, that you gave us for this year was what, 51 what? You have that, or do you know that, Jeff?
Our initial projection.
Before COVID hit, what was your projection for LISD for this school year?
51.4.
Yeah, so you see a couple of thousand less than that, Mr. Miller, and we know the majority of that, nearly 2,000 of that, is in pre-K, kinder, first grade. And so, Rocky, I think, is being conservative, and rightfully so, because we just don't know what's going to happen next year. We believe that, and certainly hope that, but you're absolutely right. We've got to be prepared to make some adjustments budget-wise, which is, we can't staff next year like we did this year if we're missing 2,000 elementary kids. And that's where our money is. Now, the recapture thing puts us in a bind no matter if we were still at 50,000. Property values keep going up. Even if we're at 51 in level, the recapture is going to continue to increase because property values keep increasing, which gives, more weighted WADA per student. So,
yeah, thank you.
Rocky, you might mute your.
So,
we're catching some background noise from you, so I promise
really?
you, we'll let you know.
I'm not hearing anything. Am I still muted? Have I
No,
muted you?
you're good. You're good now.
Yeah,
Okay.
that's all right.
Okay.
Anyway, I think your points are absolutely accurate.
I'm offering that perhaps we, and again, it's not a criticism to decisions.
Sure.
It's this, let's just say that we were supposed to be at 51,000 or whatever it was. The numbers in growth are pivoting from the 49. And we're lucky this year because we have, we expect, I think, to be held harmless throughout the year. But the decisions that we make, to Mrs. Cox's point about January, is too soon. Over a 4 or 5 month period, we need to understand what we need to get to and what we need to put in place to get those kids to see LISD as an attractive opportunity. And I would agree, pre-K, kindergarten, first grade, probably, hey, you can keep the kids at home and you don't worry about how to recover from that. But you get into second grade, third grade, start looking at reading scores, et cetera. Parents probably are like, hey, I want the ISD to help out here. It just seems to me that there's an opportunity to start looking at the data now. Where are the kids? That's what Hebrew would say, right? I think Ms. Hess, you were on the call, maybe Mrs. Sells. Where are the kids at? And then what are the things that we might have done, decisions we made that we could alter potentially to have those kids come back? Are there, and I'm not suggesting we need to make those decisions. I'm saying we should understand what those are and then be in a position to make decisions based on the data. And that we don't really have the data at this point. Like, for example, where are the 4,200? How many didn't go to school? How many went to Temple Christian or Coram Deo or homeschooled, et cetera? How many are in their home country and can't get back? Those are legitimate things. And then what do we need to do to create some initiatives to help them feel more confident? I think we've seen virtual learners, families have a higher level of confidence that kids can go back to school. And we've been able to balance that, right? So with that, I would think there's some draw of the folks that didn't come to school because we've shown some success this year. going into the latter part of the year. That's all.
Yeah. No, and I think some of that data we can absolutely get. I can't get data on kids that got stuck in their home country because I can't get in touch with them. But there's no doubt that there's a lot of anecdotal information that our schools have been collecting, trying to reach out to these folks 10 times, hey, and so we have some of that data, and the data that I think Ms. Hassett requested, charters and where these folks, so we'll absolutely gather all that for the board, and I think it absolutely warrants a very healthy discussion as far as next year and trying to project what this is going to look like.
Is that all, Mr. Miller?
Yes, thank you.
Yes, thank you. And I think for me, my concerns is not only the challenges of where are those children at, but then the challenges of bringing back those children into a learning environment where they've not had that foundation of kindergarten. Yep. And so I just want to make sure, although I do echo Mr. Miller's concerns, is with if that is our enrollment, then where does that put us as far as a board of approving a budget for next year? But at the same time, kids who have not had that foundation of kindergarten are going to be at a different learning than those kids who did, and there will have to be additional help in those classrooms for those students to be brought to where their learning can be on pace then, hopefully, quickly, and then by the end of the year with their counterparts that were here with us in kindergarten or somewhere else. So hopefully some of those kids that are at home are continuing to learn some way with their parents, but I do hope that we're thinking about those things, and I know Dr. Rapp, you and your team, I'm sure, are certainly aware of those situations. So does anybody have anything else?
And Ms. Sells, I meant to say a while ago, I don't think, while we need to gather this data to try to figure out the landscape, I don't think it has anything to do with what LISD has done or not done. I think it has to do with, if that's the case, then it's happened across the state because Rocky talked to you about 5 to 6%. I think it has to do with COVID, both parents losing jobs, relocating to live with grandparents in a different city or a different, I think it's just a giant accumulation, but we've got to try to put our finger on it to make some discussions for the future. So.
Does anybody have anything else? Okay. Thank you, Dr. Rogers. Thank you, Rocky.
Thanks, Rocky.
Thank you, Rocky.
Merry Christmas.
You too. Bye-bye.
Okay, moving right along now. We're going to ask Brother Kaj to join us, and these are discussions that the board has already been made aware of. We just wanted to sort of tell you where we're at and answer whatever questions might be lingering. And so I'm not going to steal his thunder.
Steal away, Dr. Rogers. Thank you, Dr. Rogers, President Sells, and board members. We're going to bring forth some recommendations for you for discussion concerning boundary adjustments.
Is it on? I forgot to turn mine on, so.
There we go. When we talk about boundary adjustments, it touches all four cornerstones, from student learning to student experience to community engagement, and of course resource stewardship. And so as we go through these different recommendations, you'll see how all four of these things, all four of the cornerstones are touched. In this overview today, I'm going to provide information about transportation, current programming, future programming considerations. Here are the things that we're going to bring forth for discussion: an adjustment to the subdivision of Hills of Kingswood attendance zone, the retiring of Stewart's Creek Elementary School, the new elementary school on Josie Lane in the attendance zone for that, and then a slight addition to the grandfathering clause of FDB local. Let's talk about the boundary adjustments at this time. The Hills of Kingswood. This is a subdivision in the north.
And let me just interject, sorry. Y'all have already discussed this. We just if you remember, we wanted to bring this back to your attention because we didn't ask for you to take, we were going to ask for you to take action all at once on different things versus, having Hills of Kingswood at a separate time than some of these other things. So that's, I know you've seen all this, except, of course, the grandfather clause, which we'll talk about in a minute, but I just want, I know this isn't new to y'all.
So the adjustment of the tenant zone for Hills of Kingswood, the first, second, and third phase of this development is zoned for Hicks Elementary School. The fourth phase is zoned for B.B. Owen. The problem there is that there's one entrance to the subdivision for all of those phases, and so it causes some transportation confusion, enrollment confusion there to when students are having to be zoned for a separate, different elementary school, yet there's only one way in and one way out of that subdivision. The map here shows the area that we're actually talking about. It's north of Owens, the far left side of the Hicks zone. It's a trapezoid little subdivision there, but if you look at the next map, it'll a little more detailed, and you can see the small little yellow triangle down at the bottom right. That's the zone for Owens, and the rest of that giant subdivision is zoned for Hicks, and you can see the roads and the passages to and from that phase of that subdivision. So the Hills of Kingswood, we're asking and bringing forward for that section to be zoned, that is zoned for Owens, to be changed to be zoned for Hicks.
So we might stop there and just make sure if there's questions about this.
Does anyone have any questions?
Just that future development is already zoned for Hicks, correct?
That is correct.
Yes. Okay. I didn't think so, but I wanted to make sure.
The subdeveloper reached out to me, and there's about 3 pending closures there in that area with school-age children potential, and so that's kind of what spurred this discussion. Let's talk about Stewart's Creek in the new elementary school on Josie Lane. We're going to bring forth the recommendation to retire Stewart's Creek Elementary School. Several factors go into that decision to retire that campus. The declining enrollment in all our neighborhood schools, as you've just heard Rocky go through the demographics report, but in particular Stewart's Creek, you can see the 10-year scope there of the enrollment. Right now we're sitting at about 260 students. The age of the Stewart's Creek building is a factor, and the resources needed to bring that up to current standards. Part of the discussion point 2 with the boundary adjustments and the retiring of Stewart's Creek is the growth of major roads, streets, and tollways, and also the boundaries in the colony area over time have kind of morphed and developed into things that made it difficult once again for some decisions on enrollment and transportation. And then, of course, opening of the new STEM Academy that's going to feed into the colony. The current boundaries as they sit now for LISD, and you can see 423 is a major thoroughfare, 121 is the toll road, and we've got boundaries and zones that are leapfrogging several different elementary schools, and this has just taken on a life of its own over the course of the years. The roads have grown bigger, neighborhoods have increased, neighborhoods have decreased, and so you can see where we are landing now with the current boundaries. The proposed boundaries, utilizing 423, 121, grouping the different elementary schools together to create a cleaner boundary approach for both families, programs, development, and transportation. Closer view of the lower half of this map, where the new Josie elementary school is going to be developed. You can see there's the yellow sections are going to be going to the new Josie Lane Elementary School, and then a portion of that Boot and Spur. The Spur will go to Indian Creek Elementary School. Here are the numbers. We've got the capacities of these schools that are being touched. We've got their current enrollment. We've got next year's projected enrollment, and then the year after that. By retiring Stewart's Creek, you can see that the numbers in the remaining elementary schools through the colony, heading into the middle schools and then into the high schools, the numbers remain healthy. The current programming at Stewart's Creek Elementary School that we have to consider, FLS, AVLS, SDI support, pre-K, community and schools, ESL support, and then, of course, ESD for after school. So these are the current programs that we have there now that we are in discussions about following the students to their new campuses. Transportation projections for these adjustments. Students adjusted to the new Josie Lane, Indian Creek Elementary School, the Boot and the Spur, will receive bus transportation due to the distance, of course, over 2 miles, to their home campus and multiple hazardous routes that students will have to cross over. So then the transportation is provided there. Students adjusted due to the Stewart's Creek retirement is all based upon hazardous routes, of course, again, and then the distance. Preliminary research with Jeremy Turner and with our new bus company, possibility of maybe just adding one bus route due to the boundary adjustments. The cleaner boundaries for the elementary schools gives us a higher potential to use existing routes instead of having to bus students across other attendance zones. So the summary that we're bringing forth, retirement of Stewart's Creek Elementary, the adjusted boundaries to utilizing the major roads for those boundaries, create the attendance zone, as you can see there in the yellow, for the new Josie Lane Elementary School, and then at the very far north, adjust the hills of Kingswood to be consistent with attendance to Hicks Elementary School.
So I thought this might be a good stopping place to discuss everything after the hills of Kingswood and see if the board has questions before we move on into FDB local discussion. So,
do we have questions?
I do.
Mr. Miller?
Thank you, Jeff, or Mr. Koch. I think a good question was asked this weekend about the economics around this, right? So we know that with 260 students, we're going to get the WADA. Let's just assume. And we're going to have salary expense because we're going to make sure all the teachers have opportunities. But there are facilities expenses, et cetera. There's cost avoidance, which I think should be factored in. So talked about it's one of the oldest buildings, if not the oldest building in the district. We won't have to incur upgrades, et cetera, whatever. If we could just see some rough estimates of the cost avoidance, which I would assume maybe bond funds for no 20-year refresh, et cetera, and then the operational expenses and the savings.
and Mr. Miller, Mr. Youngs and I had that discussion earlier today, so we'll put that together. But there's no doubt, just operationally, you're probably talking about at least $500,000 to $1 million, and then of course the expenditures related to bond funds to bring this facility up. So we'll generate that information for the board.
And I think there's a baseline for communication in the future, right? So one of the responsible things that we did was we retired this school for various reasons. We were able to protect the income side and had some expense, but we were saved this amount of money, and we were able to not have to incur some other costs. And the instructional benefit for these students is what you talked about, the programs they would have access to, some economies of scale in the other campuses, et cetera. And that takes me to my next question. The services that you put up there for Stewart's Creek, they'll all be provided in the campuses they're going to? I mean, are they there already at those campuses, or do we have to add some of those services?
Yeah, most of those services are already part of the of the other campuses, like ESD. We have, ESL services. We have ESL training. So the question that, probably the biggest question is, I think, Dr. Rapp, one of the 3 campuses for Stewart's Creek, because there's 3 campuses that we're talking about, Etheridge, Peters Colony, and Morningside. One of those 3 already has communities and schools, is that right?
Peters Colony.
Yes.
And I have a meeting with community and schools to look at the numbers, where the students are going, where we can best be, they can best serve those students.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Okay. Anybody else? Ms. Prosnick?
Yes, for the Hicks, moving the Hicks to Josie Lane, my understanding is that Josie Lane Elementary will be a split elementary campus.
Yeah, yes. So the plan is for the Hicks families in the Boot, and of course the Spur's not going to matter because they're going to Indian Creek, would be allowed to continue in the Hebron feeder pattern for middle school and for high school.
Because that seems like a long way to drive.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Considering
when Hebron
some of
High
those
School's
people
right
could
down
walk
the
to
street.
Hebron High School from their
Yeah.
backyard, so.
Absolutely. We agree with that.
And then I had one other. I know we've had 2 meetings so far. I've had the pleasure of attending both, and I plan on attending the next 2. My question is, as we do this and we get better and we learn to be better at when it comes to boundary adjustments and being transparent, I would like for us in the future to make sure that everybody in the community knows about the boundary adjustment, not just current students, because you're missing people who may have moved there with the idea that they were in a certain feeder pattern or they were going to go to a certain school with a 4-year-old or one of those precious 5-year-olds that we would like to recapture. And I understand we can always, find places where we've had students or where students are, but I think that we could be better community partners if we send it out to everybody, to let everybody in the community know.
So let me make sure I understand.
Sure. When we
affected the Boot
Right.
for Hicks, you would want all Hicks families to know about
I
it.
want everybody with an address in that area.
Okay.
That's my preference, and that's going forward for any adjustment, that anybody in that area where we are moving, I think that's just the right thing to do. I think that's the most transparent thing to do, because we don't know.
Yeah, I can see
Yeah.
your point regarding since we do allow open enrollment, that someone not in that particular area might, the pros and cons is you also don't want to alarm people that, hey, their boundary's changing when it's not, because they're, but yeah, we can sort of have a discussion on that.
To
and
me,
try to
that's an
figure out.
opportunity to engage a community member, to educate them,
Sure.
to bring them into the LISD fold if they hadn't been with us before, if they have if they have a non-school age child yet. I just think that that's a way that we can be better at doing this.
To try to teach people
But not
what the
for the-
process is like.
It's too late to do. It's too late to do it for this.
No, but not a mail. Are you speaking a mail to the entire Hicks community?
No, I'm talking.
Or
I'm
just
talking,
the Boot, just the
I'm talking
affected?
about
Okay.
an affected area.
Yeah.
When going forward, because I asked and we only reached out to current students. Going forward, when we do a boundary adjustment, when you do better, you do better. And I think this is a way for us to be better at this process. I think we've gotten better at this process with our community meetings, et cetera. I just think the next step would be to make sure that we are notifying the entire affected areas going forward.
Yeah, I can see what you're saying as
Yeah.
far as, let's say I'm a parent that moved into the Boot and I'm a parent of a 3-year-old, but
Yeah.
thought, hey, my kid was
My
going to go
kid's going to go to Hicks, they're going to
you
do
know,
this, they're going to do that.
Normally what happens is parents, you know, they probably move into that area thinking, okay, my kid's going to the closest elementary. But I
Right.
see the point of the
Well, and
transparency.
The
Yeah.
closest elementary
Yeah, so
would
we'll-
be Indian Creek,
Yeah,
so if.
yeah, I got you.
Yep. Anything else, anybody?
Yeah, I have a
Ms.
question.
Cox? Oh,
Go ahead.
sorry.
Go ahead, Ms. Cox.
Josh, I just want to clarify on this page right here,
Yes.
that this little purple area, is this part of LISD or
Yes, that's Homestead.
Homestead.
this is Homestead right here?
Can't read that little tiny way?
Yeah.
Sorry. Yeah, I don't even think these would help you.
Yeah, okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
I had a question too. Peters Colony is the only one with CIS, and so you wouldn't be doing it to the other two?
No, that's what we're having discussions
To add,
about.
adding
Is
the other two
to
as well?
discuss whether or not, and you remember, there are some criteria too for communities and schools, and so that's the discussion that Dr. Rapp and Mr. Koch are having.
So then they would, some students potentially might have a choice then to go to a different school if all three don't have CIS?
Well, every student still has a choice. I mean, we're an
Right.
open enrollment, district, so, I mean, they have a choice. The question is, do they have a choice, and are we going to provide transportation
Right.
inside the two-mile window? And the answer is, we're not going to provide transportation.
So the answer is
inside
we
2
don't know
miles.
if we're going to do all three of the schools that
No.
Stewart's Creek.
There'll
Yeah.
be 2 out of the 3 will have it, correct?
We believe at least 2 out of the 3.
At least 2.
But we haven't had the discussions.
Okay.
We wanted to get through our meetings. We can answer more questions of parents if, but we wanted to get through the meetings, and then Mr. Koch and Dr. Rapp will have those discussions.
And I also wanted to make sure everybody knew to go check the website because we do have more community meetings coming up about this, so.
There is a community meeting Wednesday night and another one
Thursday.
Thursday. No, the one Thursday is really specifically for the Boot and the Spur area that currently.
The website has all the information, location, date, and time. if
Mr.
anybody's
Koch
curious.
has done a great job along with communications. But
Have we got the questions from the previous meetings up yet? And the answers working on that?
I'm working on that, and we're compiling that, and that's part of our next steps is to upload the presentations and then start the creation of the FAQs and then advertise the website once again out to those families.
Okay. And just piggybacking off of, once again, about what Ms. Prosnick said, I think it behooves us to even be a community partner to those entities that work within boundaries sometimes in servicing their clients, those being our realtors and stuff. And I know that we have a network of that now with Mr. Lee and his marketing that he has done through some of the chambers, especially the Colony Chamber. And I would just ask that even farther than those people that still live there, that we make sure that misinformation is not continuing to be given out, and as those homes are being sold and resold and developed in those areas. So,
Absolutely.
just a little tidbit. Anything else? Awesome.
okay, moving right along.
The other recommendation we'd like to bring forward is to FDB local. This is the grandfathering clause. It currently states in there that the 4th and 5th grade or going into the 8th grade, you can stay. There's a sibling clause in there as well. Consideration to add to the following to FDB local would be that district transportation shall not be provided for such transfers.
And this.
Is
and
that not already in the transfer paperwork?
It's in the transfer paperwork, and I had a lot of fun watching some meetings from 3 and 4 years ago, because when this came up, it's like, I thought we already did this. And I know we discussed it at length back in October of 2017 and again in October of 2018. And I think it was Ms. Cox that said we wanted to make sure that we made it clear in the policy about transportation. And, I'll take the blame. It's not there. And so we just plan to bring that to y'all to get that cleaned up, that, hey, we're not providing transportation for those that are grandfathered.
But it's not a change. We're just clarifying and adding the policy that we already adhere to.
That's absolutely right. We're codifying policy that we have already been practicing and just getting it changed.
And that's in the paperwork.
That's
I
in
just
the
want to keep
paperwork.
reiterating that
That's
when you
right.
apply for the transfer, it says
States
in
that.
bold type that he
absolutely
will
right.
not be providing transportation.
That's absolutely right.
Okay.
Does anyone have anything else for Mr. Kosh?
Next steps, one more
Just to
slide.
kind of keep everybody moving forward. Once again, finalizing the Q&A, publishing the presentations from the community meetings. We have those 2 community meetings coming up, the 9th and the 10th. Bring forth to the January board meeting, FDB local, the no transportation sentence put in there. The boundary adjustment, take action on January 11th. Also, we're going to be working with the current Stewart's Creek staff and employee services about their employment positions for the following school year. And then, like we mentioned earlier, I'm going to be reviewing community and school locations for the continuation of those Stewart's Creek services at the other elementary schools.
And that's all we got.
Okay, anything else from any of our board members? Okay.
I just want to have a
Yes,
little quick.
Ms. Scott?
So do you know, will there be a majority of those students going to one campus over another, the way it's divided out? Because I think that should be your communities and schools maybe decision.
That's what we're looking at.
Okay.
We're pulling the data, seeing who is on their caseload currently.
Yes.
And seeing where those students are going to land.
Okay.
And then we can make some informed decisions about where to follow those students.
Okay, thank you.
I'm also wondering, could you really quick, for anybody who doesn't know, clarify that the teachers and staff at Stewart's Creek will still continue to have employment in LISD? Just make sure that.
Yeah, thank you, Ms. Hassett. I met with the staff, Mr. Kodge, myself, and Ms. Litchfield the Thursday before Thanksgiving. The reason we did that wasn't great timing, but we didn't want, we couldn't proceed with the community meetings until we met with the staff, and we don't want to push back the decision by the board to February because that's less time for families to plan. And so we, as we did for the retirement of Hedrick Elementary School, staff have 3 options. Option 1 is, which we hope they'll take, most of them will follow the kids to one of the 3 elementary schools, Morningside, Peters Colony, or Etheridge. The second option is a free agent, what we call the free agent. They can apply for a transfer at any other school that they're qualified within LISD. Maybe they live on the west side of the district, but they've been traveling over there. Well, and if there's an opening at a school closer to them, they can certainly be considered for a transfer there. And then the third option is for specific or these special type of positions, music teacher, elementary PE teacher, librarian, that we will place. But Dr. Heyer in Employee Services was phenomenal in really working through this with Hedrick, and I know they've already been working on. And those staff members will be given priority as far as placement before any other transfers are done.
Mr. Kosh, just when will you have that data for those students? Because I know in January, will it not be January when the STEM Academy applications will come open? And so if a parent chooses to maybe go down that route, they might want to know where they're headed before so they can factor that into their decision?
Yeah, we should have that in the coming weeks, especially with the community and schools and looking at where the students are going. You're absolutely correct with the window for the application for the STEM Academy. That's going to play a part into where these students are going to elect to go. And then, of course, they can elect to transfer to any of the schools. And that window is also being advertised to all the parents on when they can select that.
And Dr. Rapp, I know we discussed it this morning, but what's the date when we're starting the STEM Academy applications? I know are the meetings with parents in January, and then they have to make a commitment?
So they begin right after the January 11th board meeting. So any families that are impacted, once that decision is made, we'll be able to know that as we start those parent recruitment sessions for STEM. And that will help because we can have those maps available too. So as parents come to those STEM sessions, if they're wondering which school are they zoned for, we can also help clear up that information at that time. And what was your second question, Dr. Rogers?
I think that was it, was just when the window, and I knew there were training sessions, and then when do they have to apply and then be admitted to the STEM Academy?
So all of the application process will wrap up by February. We do that intentionally, so we have that information going into elementary staffing. So both the transfer window and STEM application processes are completed before we begin elementary staffing at the beginning of March.
Thank you.
Sure.
Ms. Cox?
I just have a comment for you, Dr. Rogers. So I know we're in a pandemic, but I wouldn't expect anything less than we did for Hedrick, the planning that they did for the closure of the campus. I would expect the same for Stewart's Creek. I love how the Hedrick campus took those kids to their new campus and got to tour. But I know it looks a little bit different, but I wouldn't expect anything different as we retire this school because it is an emotional time.
Yeah, no, I appreciate that, Ms. Cox, and we've already promised them that in talking to Ms. Smith, the Stewart's Creek principal, and we will absolutely do that and allow those kids that are going to Etheridge to visit Etheridge this spring, and the same for Peters Colony and for Morningside.
Anything else? If nothing else, thank you again.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you, Deb.
Thanks, Mr. Kaj.
See you Wednesday.
And up next is Mr. Youngs.
Good evening, board members. If you turn to page 28 of your board book, you'll find
Do we have any?
Am I on?
Or why don't y'all sit at these two mics?
We don't have wipes.
We don't have wipes.
Randy, you sit at this one, and
How do we not have wipes?
you got to be careful of Jeff.
So 5 years ago, the board approved architectural and related services RFQ. Those 5 years have passed, and it's time to do that again. So Craig Martin will discuss the process that was used to move this forward, and then Mr. Fite will discuss the selection process. So Mr. Martin, please.
President Sales, members of the board, Dr. Rogers. Just wanted to, as Mr. Young's alluded to, 5 years ago we went through this process. The board selected an architects at that time. That period of that process, RFQ, is set to expire in January. So we started this in working with Mr. Young's and Randy Fite and his group in September, kind of developing the RFQ and then advertised that and went through that process, received firms' responses, and the RFQ process is a little bit different than a bid. It's really looking at qualifications of the firms and their competence and their experience and their methodologies of how they do the work. And so we went through that process and had a great response from interested firms for Lewisville. It was 5 years ago. It was a very well received response, but I would say this time it was even more looked upon. Lewisville was very attractive to the groups. So as we've done that, Mr. Young's and Mr. Fite, there was a committee that was formed, and then they looked at the responses, and then we're scheduled next week to bring forth a recommendation to the board.
All right, and I don't have a lot to add since tonight's mainly about the process. The full recommendation will come next Monday night. I will say, I won't mention any firm names tonight, but you do have our recommendation in your board materials, and you will notice that we are recommending 3 firms this time. So with that said, we'd love to answer any questions you may have.
Okay, let's start again with Ms. Prosnick.
Thank you all for being here. I pulled up the process from 2016 and there have been some changes in the rubric that you used this time versus the last time. Could you speak to why those changes were made?
Sure. I mean, I'll speak to that. I wasn't here in 2016, but I can tell you we pulled all of ours straight from the government code, just on the
well, like, can I give, in one of the examples, it was 30% of the score back in 2016 for firms' qualifications, background, experience related to architecture and related services. And in this year's RFQ, it's only 25%.
Gotcha. Yes, ma'am. Yeah, it's just what the committee felt like was the proper scoring.
Yeah, there's not a set specific amount of those percentages. They can change. You know, I think that as Mr. Five alluded to, the fact is that those areas, you know, it's kind of looked at as he said, he wasn't here 5 years ago, and in that spot, so he was. You know, I think the committee decided on that percentage. You know, it's not a set amount. And then before 2016, we only had one architecture firm. Then in 2016, we had two. And I don't know if tonight's the night, or I'm happy to ask this again in a week, why three are being recommended.
Sure. So we just feel like it gives us the diversity that we need. You know, obviously our bond packages are a lot larger than they used to be. You know, looking at future bonds and the number of 20-year refreshes, I don't think that will change, the size of the next bond. Changes happen sometimes with different firms, and so we like to be able to adapt to those. It also allows us to kind of pick the right firm for the right project. And I think it kind of goes along with how we've structured everything else, from our CMARs to our commissioning agents, you know, the engineers we work with. We have more than one on pretty much all of those now. And then, you know, looking at, we did look at some peer districts and what other people are doing. And for the most part, I think Mr. Martin can attest to that. He did the research on that. But for the most part, most of our peer firms are using multiple firms.
We reached out to 5 local districts in the DFW area, similar in size to Lewisville, and actually, you know, we tried to, you know, follow up to find out, you know, how many firms that they have, and the average came out to 3. There are some districts that have 3, and there's some that have 5 and 4 and then 2, and one of the districts. Similar to Lewisville, had 1, but they did make the comment that they will be adding firms the next time. So.
And Ms. Prosnick, I think that's an excellent question. It's actually a question I asked, too. And I think Randy alluded to it a little bit. Even in the 5 years that we've had the 2, you see sometimes, not only between those 2 firms, but you also see with other architectural firms in the area, a lead architect jumps ship. And so having, you know, part of Randy's response is having 3 allows you some wiggle room. If one of your lead companies loses the architect that you've been working with and you really like, it gives you some wiggle room instead of just boxing you in. Now you only have one choice. So that part of the explanation made sense to me. But then the other question is, can you keep all 3 happy? So that was my other question. And I think with our amount of bonds work still to be done, you know, that's larger than a lot of school districts do. I think that's absolutely the reason that we had even more participation in the RFQ the second time around, is because we had already passed a bond election versus 5 years ago we hadn't. So anyway, but I totally understand the perspective. It was my questions too.
Ms. Hassett?
No questions. Thank you.
Mr. Miller?
I think my questions have been answered, or in other venues. I think I might ask a question privately because of the sensitivity to it. I would just say, to the rubric thing, it's hard for me to have this discussion and not think about some other things coming up, particular TPA in some of those, and think about the rubric and us being willing to be flexible in providing for our employees, just like we do with the way we're leveraging the use of our bond funds to create safe and secure and productive campuses. So I think I'll ask my question outside of that, and that's probably the more appropriate thing. And then that'll come out to the rest of the board next week.
Sure.
Ms. Lasan?
My only comment would be just to brag on the committee a little bit. You yourself are an architect, correct?
Yes, ma'am. And
Don't
Julie
you have
Sands
one-
as well.
Julie is
Yeah.
as well.
Yes, ma'am.
So, I mean, to me, as a person who is not an architect, the rest of you guys on the committee are also great. But I'm just saying that adds
You're not an
adds some credence to it, that you guys are architects and have a little bit more, professional knowledge of what they might throw your way, right? So.
I think so, yeah. Thank you. I
There
appreciate
you go.
it.
You went to school for something, right?
Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am.
Ms. Cox? Just to kind of allude to Ms. Prosnick's question, so the committee did, just from past experiences, did that base like the rubric off what past projects you've seen would skew some of the numbers and the percentages?
Yes, I think so. So, looking at the evaluation sheet, and of course, I don't have the 2016 in front of me, but, we did have a lot of points on the proposed personnel. I think something that we have seen is there's a ton of great firms. I mean, we had a lot of responses from a lot of great firms. But really, the people that we work with directly, and it's the same thing for our cement risk firms and all the other firms, it's the people we deal with on the day-to-day basis and those teams and how strong they are. I think there's huge value to that. We have experienced in the past where, we may not have had, the right individual in the right position, and you can see the difference. And so I think right now, we've got some great teams that we've been working with, and there's a lot of value to that. I think that's why you see that score different on this time.
And we experienced a little of that with Mill Street, with our CM at risk. They didn't have the right person, and that hurt us, so.
We just found out a little bit too late. We just found out a little bit too late.
Yes.
And I think you've already answered my question. My question was making sure that we don't just round robin these firms, that we actually, in each situation, in each case, that we really dive deep into how are they going to perform for us on this project, and then choose the best one in leveraging having three. And my question was, why are we adding one? And so your response, I think, satisfies me on that. And I get that. And it's just like any other consumer, I like to have choices. So, okay. Anything else?
And I think there has been, what we learned after only having one architect for a long time, is that there has been great synergy having two. One, they help exchange ideas amongst themselves, and then having a little bit of that competition is also beneficial. And so we see that actually, ratchet up even a little more, having three. So. Okay.
Any other questions?
Thank y'all.
Okay. Thank you. Okay, if there is no further business, I will adjourn this meeting, and the time is now 8:23 p.m. Thank you all for being here.